Good Sunday morning, everyone, and welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Victoria Online. If you're here for the first time today, my name is Carrie Hunter, and I'm the Spiritual Director of the Center. And of course, if you've been with us these past few weeks or you're part of our regular team, you know that we're on the yellow brick road in the land of Oz this month. The theme for my talks this month, of course, is The Wizard of Us, and it's taken from Jean Houston's wonderful book by that name. But I'm also using the principles of our teaching to provide metaphors for what this journey really means, for what the Wizard of Oz and Dorothy and all of her companions really means as we go along. And of course, last week we met Tin Man, who really wanted to have a heart. And the week before that we met Scarecrow, who wanted a brain. And when Dorothy met Scarecrow, she didn't know which direction she was going to take. She came to a fork in the road. And that represented to me a time of transition in her life. She had to make a choice. Scarecrow couldn't help her because he didn't have a brain. But Dorothy finally made the choice, and the two of them set off on one path. And that represents to me the beginning of a spiritual path that we choose at some point in our lives. Some of us are feeling this from a very early, tender age, and for others it happens later in life. But it does happen, and we have the choice. We can either go on as we have been, or we can take that new direction and find faith and deep satisfaction in it. So Dorothy and Scarecrow have started down that road, and they meet Tin Man, who wants a heart. And to me, that represents what we call the longest distance between our head and our hearts, our intuition, our intelligence, our true intelligence, which is in our hearts. You know, we're so used to living in our heads by determining everything through our thoughts, when in fact the greatest intelligence, the greatest memory of all has been proven to now be in our hearts. That's where our intuition lives. And when we get deeply into our spiritual practice, we can start relying more and more upon that. We know when to go down a dark alley and it's safe, or when it isn't safe. We know when it's time to do anything that we have previously denied doing and now want to go forward with. We absolutely know. We have that deep, deep knowing in our hearts. I say it's like having a gut feeling in your heart. You know, it's just this loving presence that is there. And we know that we can trust it. And so I think that these two things are aspects of Dorothy as she's on her journey. And the next aspect, of course, is courage. Because the next thing they're going to do along the way, the animal they're going to meet is Lion. And he's looking for courage. And so I'm going to talk about that today. But before I do, I can't let another moment go by without addressing the horrible news that's been coming out of the United States the last few days. The murder of George Floyd by police officers who were going to incarcerate him, if they were ever going to do that. They took an African-American man who was handcuffed, put him on the ground, and new video shows that 3 police officers held him down, even though he wasn't resisting. And 1 police officer held his knee to George Floyd's throat until he died. Estimates were about 7 minutes later, but he continued to hold his knee to George Floyd's throat for 2.5 minutes after he died. And George Floyd throughout was saying, "I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe." And there are people now in protest wearing t-shirts saying, "I can't breathe." And his last words were, "Mama, help me. Mama, help me." His late mother had died well before. It broke my heart. It still breaks my heart to even speak those words. How could this happen in this so-called civilized society? How can these things happen? And this isn't an isolated incident. These things have been happening in America for a long time, but it seems they're more frequent. And I cannot understand, I can't comprehend in any way how anyone could do this to another human being, no matter what. And I comforted myself for about 3 minutes by saying, I'm a Canadian, thank God I live in Canada, thank God these things don't happen here. You know, we don't see this happening here with police officers holding down African Americans until they die. We don't have a very large African American population in Canada, but we can never be holier than thou. Not ever. Just last week I heard that in Vancouver there were people with baseball bats going after Chinese Canadians, wanting to beat them, accusing them of bringing the coronavirus to us. How ignorant is that? How hate-filled is that? How can any of us consider such a thing? How can anyone perpetrate such an atrocity on anyone, anywhere? And many years ago, it was the gay community that was targeted. And there were people who were gay who were killed, not by the police. They were killed by people who were fearful, who lacked courage, who lacked love, who lacked understanding, who were bullies. We need to be better than this. We need to rise up against this. And right now I pray for George Floyd, and I pray for his beloved family, and I pray for the lives of everyone that he has touched through his life and through his death. And I pray for justice for him. We can't continue to have these things happening on this planet. God knows we have enough going on right now that is what I would call pure evil. And in New Thought, we're taught that there's no such thing as evil, there's only God. But Ernest Holmes, our founder, wrote that evil is the misuse of power. And that's what we're seeing, the misuse of power. And it's not just that we're seeing it with those police officers in America, we're seeing it in other places as well. And I won't get political here. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful for where we live, and I'm grateful that we have loving and compassionate people around us. And I pray that that love and compassion expands and grows in every heart, in our country and in every country, until we truly have peace on earth. And it's really up to us. It's up to each one of us to rise to a higher consciousness. We have to do that. We have to be in a place where we understand that we were born with this presence within us, the presence of God. It doesn't matter what you call it. Spirit, call it source, call it God, call it intelligence, call it power. The thing is that we were all born with it. That's what we're all made of. Everything on this earth is made of this substance, this intelligence. Everything. And there's no place where we leave off and it begins. We're all in this great cosmic soup together. And if you read books about quantum physics, you'll really get to understand how much we are all one and how we are all connected one to the other. And we are connected by this spirit. We are connected by this presence. It's who we are. Let us remember who we are. And let us stay in that place of high consciousness and pray for the world to join us in that place so that we no longer see these atrocities happening on this planet. Let us have faith. Let us have hope. Let us have the confidence and the truth within us. And let us have the courage to take this on, to not allow it to happen, to see the brightest and best as what is yet to come. And so today we're going to meet Lion on the yellow brick road. We're going to meet him as Dorothy and her friends are going through a dark forest. And Dorothy's a little bit nervous. and so are her colleagues. She wonders if there could be anything there that could hurt them. And Tin Man says, well, there are probably lions and tigers and bears. And then they get really frightened. They're not just a little bit nervous, they're really frightened. And, isn't that a bit like us, when we start going through a dark night of the soul, or we're in a dark place, that we start to get nervous, we start to get fearful, we start to be scared. Well, sure enough, what we think about, what we focus upon expands. Our deepest beliefs are what we manifest into form. Our thoughts become things. What we resist persists. We have to remember this. And so there they are fearful. And they're worried about lions and tigers and bears. And who should appear but Lion? And he is roaring, and he is intimidating, and he's a bully, and he chases after little Toto, Dorothy's dog. And Toto leaps up into Dorothy's arms, and Dorothy is angry. And she is emboldened because she doesn't stand for anybody who will pick on a little creature anywhere, or pick on anybody who's not able to stand up for themselves. Would not pick on a George Floyd. Whew. Anyway, Dorothy, in her anger and upset, smacks Lion on the nose. And Lion collapses into a sniveling heap. And he cries. And he explains that he doesn't have any courage, and he really wants to have courage. And so Dorothy and Scarecrow and Tin Man take heart. They have compassion for Lion, and they explain to him that they're going to see the Wizard of Oz. They're going to the Emerald City. And the Wizard is going to give Scarecrow a brain and Tin Man a heart. And for certain, he would give courage to Lion. And so Lion says that he will go along with them. That's just absolutely what he needs. And he joins the group, and they go skipping along the yellow brick road, singing and dancing. And of course, everything isn't all sweetness and light as they go along the yellow brick road. They encounter more dark places. And when we're in a dark place, things tend to get worse for us. And so we have to remember to pull ourselves out of it. We need to remember to go forward. Always to go forward, not to allow ourselves to slip back again. To slip back into fear, to slip back into the places that we've come from that haven't been the best experiences. And above all, we have to think positively. We can't allow negative thoughts to enter our mental atmosphere. I was watching Jimmy Fallon the other night on late night television, and he was interviewing Henry Winkler. You will remember Henry Winkler as the Fonz in Happy Days, if you're old enough to remember that. And Jimmy Fallon said to Henry Winkler, you're the most positive person that I know. You are always positive. And Henry Winkler said, yes, I am positive. He said, I just don't allow negative thoughts to go through my consciousness. He said, when a negative thought appears, I just push it aside and I replace it with a positive thought. And then he said something that I absolutely love. He said, I never put a period after a negative thought. Don't you love that? I never put a period after a negative thought. He doesn't give it any credence. He pushes it aside and replaces it with a positive thought. I wrote it down. I laughed. I said, I'm going to use that. I am using that. But I think I might also use, if somebody is speaking to me in a negative way, I think I'll probably say, are you putting a period after that? That's what we need to do. We need to remind one another Because as we remind one another to stay in a positive place, we're creating better lives for ourselves and for one another and with one another. So I invite you to just use that. Are you putting a period after that? Put a period after our positive thoughts, not our negative thoughts. And courage just allows us to step into a grander lifestyle, a grander place, an empowering place. You know, look at what we're going through right now. There are a lot of people who are living in fear because of this pandemic. But look at the courage as well. Look at the courage of those people who are the first responders. Look at those people who are on the front lines. The courage that it takes for nurses and doctors and caregivers to be looking after people with this virus, people who are close to death, people who are seeing their colleagues coming down with this illness, dying with this illness. The courage that it takes for them to go back day after day. What that must do to their hearts and souls. What that must do to their psyche. The mailmen, mail women, those who bring us our mail every day. The supermarkets that are open, the pharmacies that are open, where there are courageous people who are going to work so that we get our food, that we get the things that we need. We are so blessed during this time. And these are people of great courage. Certainly we can have the courage as we stay home, quarantined, to be living without fear. To know that there is this power within us that never deserts us. Let us not desert it at this time. Let us know that there are brighter days ahead. And let us make the most of this time to be in spiritual practice and to be stronger and healthier. And to be looking at life in fresher ways. To appreciate some of the goodness that we are seeing. To appreciate the bravery that we're seeing. You know, Lion, like any bully, is simply expressing insecurity. We all know people who are bullies. We all know and recognize that there's insecurity in each of them. They have to keep pretending that they are the best, the greatest, better than anybody else. Not naming anyone in particular, but we do see evidence of this quite often. And it's not attractive. It's not the place that we need to be. We really need to be people who are growing our love, growing our compassion, growing our wisdom, growing our faith. We truly, truly need to rise up in consciousness to be better than this. And it is all possible. We just need to remember the truth of who we are. We are spirit having a human experience, and we're just not going to let this kind of thing happen any longer. We are courageous. We have heart. We are using our brains in constructive ways. We are growing a better consciousness. We are growing a better earth. That's really what this whole story of the Wizard of Oz is all about, as Dorothy and her friends go forward. And Lion, well, actually, each one of them shows great courage along the way. Lion, who says he has no courage, actually has to become very courageous without even knowing it. Because at one point, the wicked witch of the West, say that 3 times, the wicked witch of the West, she captures Dorothy and takes her to her castle. And Lion disguises himself and overcomes the guards so that he can rescue Dorothy and get her back on the path with Scarecrow and Tin Man. And they can continue their journey to the Emerald City. And he has to prove that he has destroyed the witch by taking her broom to the wizard. Lion has to go through a lot of spiritual change, shift, to do all of these kinds of things. Again, representing the things that Dorothy needed to learn about herself, the things that each of us has to has to acknowledge in our own being and has to grow in our own consciousness as we're on our own journey, on our own way to the Emerald City, to our spiritual path, to our spiritual destination, which is God. Whatever, again, you want to call God, the universe, spirit, source, all it is. It's a metaphor, really, for rising and connecting and surrendering and having inner guidance and listening to our inner guidance. How important that is. Truly, truly doing it. And sometimes it means we have to sit with it for quite a while. We have to sit with it. We have to sit with our eyes closed. We have to sit in a contemplative way, meditation, prayer, whatever, until we have that feeling in our heart center, our feeling that this is exactly what we need to do, exactly what is the right thing to do. And sometimes life is downright scary. And we need to remember, we need to feel the fear and do it anyway. That's really what this is about. That's when we're conquering that fear. Doesn't mean that we're fearless. It means that we move beyond our fear and do what it is that we really need to do, what we are impassioned to do, what we are called to do. We need to look adversity in the eye and know that great life begins on the edge of our comfort zone. Great life begins on the edge of our comfort zones. It means that we're constantly being called to push beyond our limited selves, push beyond who we are right here and right now, always striving to be higher and better. Like the lion, let us have the courage to be. Let us have the courage to move through adversity, to use the mighty power within to overcome it. Let us bring about greater love, greater compassion, greater wisdom by being that example for everyone that we meet along our own personal paths. That's the way that this world is going to change. As I'm fond of saying, and many metaphysicians are saying, there's a grassroots movement right now. We're flying below the radar, but the day is coming when we will move into mass consciousness. We will move into the place where love and peace, compassion, wisdom, greater intelligence conquers all. And there will be peace on this earth. It's up to us, to each one of us, to do our best. And let us pray. Let us pray for it for each of us. Let us pray for it for everyone. And let us pray that we get to see it in our lifetime. And so it is. Thank you for being here. And as I typically do at this point, I invite you to reach for the donate button at the top of this page and to make a contribution to us. Thank you for your faithful giving. Those of you who have continued to do this are ensuring that our center stays open. I'm fond of saying these days that our physical building may have closed, but our church didn't. Our center didn't close. It continues. It's continued online, and we're here for you. We're here to do prayer with you. We're here to support you in any way that we can. And the contributions that you've been making are what are allowing us to move into our new facility at the Cook Street Activity Center on June 21st, when we'll get together to share space again physically for the first time, albeit social distancing and following all of the provincial guidelines. And it will be a day for rejoicing for sure. I look forward to seeing you all there. And also, if you are not on our webpage, but you would like to go there, it's www.cslvictoria.org. Our mailing address is there as well if you would like to make a donation by check, or if you would like to make one by e-transfer, simply e-transfer it to welcome@cslvictoria.org, and we will record these, and you'll receive a tax receipt at the end of this year. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your contributions to us. Thank you for your contribution to the world. Thank you for the love and compassion that you show everyone along the way. God bless you all. I send you my love and send you my great blessings as we continue on our own journeys through this week. And I look forward to seeing you again. And so it is.